My name is William Kennedy, and my wife is Victoria. She prefers to be called Victoria, and that's what everyone who knows her calls her. In the circle of family and friends, I am known as William. Interestingly, my boss at work, who adheres to an official manner of behavior, invariably refers to me as William. Our professional relationship is positive, and I find satisfaction in my role. I work as a lawyer for a company specializing in management consulting and accounting, with an emphasis on corporate law. Despite the fact that my work requires a long working day, I can flexibly adjust my schedule depending on the requirements of the project. Meeting deadlines is very important, and I try to meet them on time to avoid problems with my superiors. On the other hand, Victoria works for a publishing company and mostly works at home, devoting her time to editing various written works. She likes the freedom to set her own work schedule, which allows her to combine her responsibilities with caring for our 3 children. Our family consists of 2 daughters aged 8 and 6, and a 5-year-old son. In our hectic schedule filled with numerous chores and commitments, we try to fit moments of pleasure into our daily routine. As a couple, we try to find time to go out together at least twice a month, and although we don't always manage to achieve this goal, we work hard to make our relationship a priority. Has it ever seemed to you that we are missing something? Asked Victoria. I'm not really sure. What exactly are you thinking about, Victoria? I replied. Lately, it seems to me that we are stuck in a monotonous routine. I wonder if you feel the same way, my love, Victoria continued. Curious, I asked, how do you feel about this routine? It seems that our days revolve around work and taking care of children. We don't have time for ourselves, Victoria explained. Thinking about her words, I realized what she was getting at. Would you like to go on vacation together? We could arrange with your parents to look after the children for a week and go to the Caribbean to soak up the sun and relax on the beach. We both need to rejuvenate, I suggested. To my surprise, Victoria replied, It sounds great, dear, but I have another idea on how to bring some excitement into our lives. Intrigued, I asked, What do you mean, my love? After some hesitation, Victoria said, we can discuss the idea of pretending to enter into relationships with other people and experience intimacy with them. What if we really try to do it? My heart started pounding at the unexpected offer, which made me ask, What exactly are you offering, Victoria? Victoria encouraged me to think about her idea before giving up on it. Imagine the opportunity to communicate with those who are close to us and from time to time enter into intimate relationships without any romantic obligations. Just imagine what new passion and excitement we could bring to our marriage and to each other, she said. Realizing that I was holding my breath, I finally spoke. What exactly are you suggesting, Victoria? Are you implying that you want to have an intimate relationship with another man? I asked, wanting clarification. Smiling, she explained, This will not be considered infidelity, my dear. It will be a casual arrangement devoid of romance or a relationship similar to ours, only in isolation. Maybe several times a month. What do you think about it? Stunned by her suggestion, I repeated, Let me confirm my understanding. Are you saying that you want to have intimate relationships with other men a couple of times a month? It doesn't have to be exactly twice a month. The frequency may vary by mutual agreement, she replied. I was completely stunned. It seemed to me that she hit me with a hammer. After a little thought, I asked for clarification. So, we're both going to participate in this? Absolutely. We're both going to be involved in this. Think of the uncharted territory that we could explore to enhance each other's pleasure, to discover new aspects of our relationship that we haven't explored yet. Just imagine what kind of passion we can ignite, she clarified. Sighing, I asked, But where would we even start? Have you already found someone? If I agree, I said, To be honest, Victoria, I don't like this idea right now. Take some time to think. We could potentially explore the possibility of an intimate relationship without any commitment. It could be arranged at a time that would not interfere with our daily routine or family responsibilities, so that we would continue to support each other as before. Our family life will not be disrupted, and there is a possibility that our personal well-being will even benefit from this. Together, we could discover the growth of passion and a sense of intimacy, she explained. Despite all my doubts, an unpleasant feeling lurked in me. Victoria was known for planning everything carefully, and this situation was no exception. I guessed that Victoria had spent a lot of time trying to imagine this scenario, perhaps even identifying a specific person with whom she could enter into an intimate relationship if I agreed. In an attempt to clarify, I repeated, just to confirm once again, you're suggesting that we both have the freedom to seek other partners outside of our marriage. You think that none of us will experience jealousy, disappointment, or emotional pain if one of us starts a relationship with another partner. Is that the point of your offer? After considering her answer, Victoria confirmed, yes, it's actually an idea. What are your thoughts? Do you want to try it? Her willingness encouraged me to delve deeper into the essence of the issue. If I wanted to get to the truth, I couldn't help but wonder about the identity of the man she would like to have an intimate relationship with if I agreed to this unconventional idea. When do you suggest we start, and who is this man you have in mind? I asked, wanting to clarify the situation. Her enthusiasm for me agreeing to her plan inadvertently revealed the hint. Well, there's this guy Ian from the publishing company. He often invites me to lunch when I'm in the office. He's younger than us, and according to others, he's already in a relationship, Victoria said, inadvertently revealing her interest in a younger man named Ian. So, Ian, huh? I remarked, processing this newfound information. Darling, what do you think? Do you mind trying something else to spice up our marriage? She asked. Perplexed, I replied, I don't understand how your relationship with another man will improve our relationship. If our goal is to deepen intimacy, shouldn't we focus on exploring ways to strengthen it together, between us, and not with someone else? How will getting to know another person improve our bond? I just want us to stay in the center of our attention, I clarified. Think about what fresh views and ideas we could learn from each other, as if we hired an assistant to find innovative ideas. Perhaps we could seek the advice of a therapist together, she suggested. I don't believe that your relationship with another man will benefit our relationship, I said, despite my reservations. Victoria did not want to give up the idea of consulting with a psychotherapist. Zach, dear, please believe me. I really believe that my proposal meets our interests. I would never do anything that would jeopardize our marriage, she claimed. Getting more and more frustrated with her persistence, I replied, Victoria, I have no authority to control your actions, but I can express my concern about how this might affect us and our family. Consider this an opportunity for both of us to go on an adventure. Imagine the potential for growth and learning that this experience can provide, she urged. Victoria, this is not the same as signing up for a course. You're suggesting that we have an intimate relationship with another man, I said irritably. Depressed by the situation, I muttered to myself as I got up from the table and headed to the men's room to tidy myself up. Looking at my reflection in the mirror, I couldn't get rid of the feeling that she was hiding secret motives and seemed determined to get her way despite my reservations. After splashing cold water on my face and regaining my composure, I returned to the table, still not sure if Victoria's plan would strengthen our marriage. On the contrary, I was afraid that it would only add additional difficulties to our already challenging life. Considering that our plates are already overflowing, the idea of involving other people in an intimate relationship, even by mutual consent, seemed to me an unnecessary complication. What bothered me the most was that when I married Victoria, I imagined an exceptional relationship. For me, marriage symbolized commitment to loyalty and like-mindedness. This expectation was reinforced by the vows we exchanged, promising to remain faithful to each other. It became obvious that my wife was not satisfied with our marriage, and this realization depressed me. The next 2 weeks were marked by a tense relationship between us. Victoria continued to smile encouragingly, waiting for me to agree to her proposal. She noticeably intensified our usual intimate encounters, which usually took place twice a week. During the week, she expressed a desire for intimacy every evening after putting the children to bed. She would take my hand and lead me into the bedroom. We took a shower together, exploring each other with soapy hands. Victoria's attractiveness and physical fitness were obvious, indicating a thirst for intimacy beyond our usual schedule. I couldn't help but wonder if I was neglecting her needs in bed. She showed such enthusiasm and willingness, which I had not seen for many years. She expressed a desire to experiment with various positions that we hadn't tried before we became parents. While we were participating in these intimate encounters, I couldn't help but wonder if our routine had become monotonous and whether finding intimacy with other people was the right decision. A week passed, and I decided that she had given up on the idea of an open marriage. Perhaps her true desire was just more intimacy. But my assumptions turned out to be wrong when Victoria started initiating nocturnal intimacy again. After a particularly stormy meeting during which she involved me twice, she brought up the subject again. "Darling, have you thought about trying an open marriage, as I have already suggested?" she asked. I was stunned by her persistence. "I must admit that lately, you and I have been making love more and more often, and I secretly hoped that you had reconsidered your idea," I confessed. Victoria acknowledged the recent closeness between us but expressed a desire for variety and excitement in our intimate encounters. "We need to change some things to make them more exciting. I think this is something we can learn by exploring relationships with other people," she clarified, depressed that she was still interested in an open marriage. I asked her, "So you're still leaning towards an open marriage with other men?" My tone reflected my dissatisfaction with the situation. "Don't worry, William. Consider this an opportunity for personal growth and bringing new experiences to our marriage. The passion and excitement you crave, are you with me now?" Victoria encouraged. "This is a chance for both of us to enter uncharted territory and bring new aspects to our relationship. I think it will strengthen our bond as a couple," she added optimistically. "Victoria, as I said before, I don't dictate decisions to you. You are independent in your choice. If that's really what you want, then I suppose you'll act even if I don't quite agree," I humbly admitted. "Be careful getting what you want because any choice is fraught with consequences," I advised. "Thank you, William. Believe me, it will be useful for both of us," Victoria optimistically confirmed. After this conversation, the decision seemed to have been made. I left the room to pour myself a strong drink. I've accepted that irreparable damage has been done to my marriage, and it's useless to try to convince Victoria. She got the freedom she wanted. She started dating other men, and there was nothing I could do to prevent it. Despite the chaotic circumstances, it's time for her to face the consequences of her choice. A month later, Victoria wasted no time in arranging a meeting with Ian from her workplace. Despite our agreement not to spend the night with lovers, Victoria and Ian met twice a week. After the fourth meeting, she started texting me late at night, citing intoxication from wine and inability to drive. I found her sudden need to stay the night quite convenient and suggested she take a taxi. One Saturday evening, after putting the children to bed, we sat down at the table to discuss the events of the last month. "Victoria, we need to establish some ground rules regarding this open marriage. It is very important that we refrain from actions that are unpleasant to another person or to which he did not consent," I stressed, waiting for her answer. "What kind of actions are you referring to exactly?" she asked. "To begin with, we had an agreement not to stay overnight, but you've stayed overnight with Ian 4 times in the last 2 weeks, which is against our agreement. I prefer you to be at home at night. Your absence bothers me. It is very important that you inform me of your location, and this practice needs to change," I said. "Maybe your dissatisfaction is caused by the fact that you are the only one coping with the children's morning routine," she asked. "No, it's not just about the kids. This concerns your actions and our general agreement," I clarified. "Okay, no more sleepovers." "What's next?" she asked. "Maybe we should draw up a written agreement in which our obligations to each other, the children, and the whole family will be spelled out," I suggested. "William, this seems to be too much." "We are mature people who are able to handle this situation," Victoria replied. "Despite this, I believe that clear communication is necessary for the success of this agreement. When you turn off your phone while being with someone else, it raises concerns about your safety. Your well-being is my priority," I said. The other issue is protection. "Does your partner also take the necessary precautions?" I asked. "I use birth control, William, so there's no reason to worry about it," Victoria assured me. "I am concerned about the risk of sexually transmitted diseases." "Did he show you the documents from the doctor confirming that he does not have sexually transmitted diseases?" I asked. "I didn't ask for proof, but I'm sure he's clean," Victoria replied. "So, he doesn't use protective equipment. Is he doing this to you?" I asked. Victoria blushed at the question but then admitted, yes, it is. If he had a sexually transmitted disease and he didn't tell you about it, there's a chance you'll pass it on to me if we get intimate again, Victoria. I've decided that we won't have intimacy, at least not yet, I stressed. Victoria paused, considering my words. When you decided to move away from a monogamous marriage, it entailed certain obligations. Would you like to end our intimate relationship? It was a difficult conversation, but it had to be started, regardless of whether it coincided with my mood. I am deeply attached to you. We live together, we have children, and we imagine how we will grow old and take care of each other. Your disregard for our well-being deeply bothers me, and I can't find the words, I said, feeling the need to sort out the situation. I added, I want to talk to Ian. Victoria looked stunned by my request. What? Why do you want to talk to him? She asked. I consider it necessary to meet with him and talk, I clarified. I want to make sure that he puts your safety and well-being first. Actually, I wanted to find out if Victoria was honest with him about our arrangement. I doubted that she had made it clear to him that their relationship was purely physical and devoid of any romantic connection. Victoria's secretive behavior about our relationship bothered me. I was afraid that he might have expectations that she would not be able to meet, such as emotional attachment. The question remained, does she have feelings for him? Loving two people with the same intensity is a rare phenomenon. It just so happened that as feelings for one person grow, attachment to another often weakens. This natural development has been bothering me, especially since the day my wife proposed the idea of an open marriage, which meant the beginning of my loss. At first, I was not looking for a partner because my interest in him was absent, but getting to know a new side of my wife's character made me think that what is good for her should be good for me. It's been 6 months, and I admit it's been a long time since we started this new chapter. Victoria has a stable relationship with a new partner. First, it was Ian, and now it's a man named Henry. About 5 months ago, I advocated meeting with him. Victoria's resistance only spurred my determination to start a conversation with him about the woman he was in love with. On the day I knew Victoria would be working from home, I decided to visit the publishing company's office in search of him. Upon arrival, the secretary took me to Ian's workplace, where I found him. I must admit I was shocked that a young man was sitting in front of me. He looked to be about 20 years old, about the same height as me, with brown hair and a slim build. After introducing himself, Ian stood up to shake my hand but immediately pulled away, realizing that I was Victoria's husband. Puzzled by his reaction, I started a conversation. Hi Ian, I am William Kennedy, husband of Victoria Kennedy. We need to talk, let's find a quiet place to talk. There are important issues that need to be resolved, I said, inviting him to follow me. I didn't know if he would agree, but I was surprised when he followed me, albeit with some nervousness. He seemed to perceive my presence as a confrontation. It was obvious that his perception of the relationship with his wife was very different from my own. We sat comfortably in the nearest coffee shop and ordered coffee with a croissant. I wanted to create a relaxed atmosphere so that Ian could communicate openly with me. Ian, could you tell me a little bit about yourself? I asked. Despite his initial nervousness, after a series of questions, I began to find out his point of view on the relationship with Victoria and his hopes for the future. Through persistent questioning, I gradually uncovered valuable information about the dynamics of their relationship. As it turned out, Victoria entered into an intimate relationship with Ian about a month before we decided to consider the possibility of an open marriage. Ian held the position of refusing to use protective equipment, claiming that he was not ill and was ready to be tested if necessary. He shared Victoria's concerns about the state of our marriage, pointing out the palpable lack of emotional support on my part and her thoughts about separation or divorce. In addition, he mentioned her claim that I allegedly recognized and accepted her relationships with other men. Ian also asked if I disliked him. He asked if I was harboring any intentions of revenge. I assured him that this was not the case, which greatly eased his fears. Nevertheless, I strongly stressed the importance of using remedies with Victoria in the future. Without the possibility of compromise, I made it clear that if this instruction is ignored, there will be consequences. Does your partner know about your intimate relationship with Victoria? I asked. What kind of girl Victoria is my partner? Ian replied. I retold Victoria's story, in which she mentioned that he has another girlfriend and that being close to her complements his existing relationship. A few months ago, I ended my previous relationship with my ex-girlfriend. Now Victoria is my only partner, Ian clarified. Suggesting that Victoria was not entirely truthful in communicating with him, her cheating relationship with Ian and her aspirations for it became apparent. It became clear that our ideas about the future are very different. A couple of nights later, Victoria got mad at me for meeting Ian. "William, why did you visit Ian? He claimed that you were upset and threatening him," she asked. Inwardly, I couldn't help but smile at this situation. "Did Ian tell you that I stressed the importance of using protective equipment if he wants to have an intimate relationship with you?" I asked. "Yes, he did, but the use of protective equipment deprives us of pleasure. Why are you so insistent on this?" "For God's sake, we both don't have sexually transmitted diseases," Victoria replied, visibly agitated. By adopting a mature approach, I responded to her concerns. "Darling, my main concern is your safety. We have already agreed that both you and he will use protective equipment. You agreed to this," I reminded her. Victoria muttered something under her breath and left, leaving us in silence for 2 days. When we finally spoke, she was full of anger again. "Are you satisfied now? Ian ended our relationship, and I won't be seeing him anymore. Was that your true wish when you went to meet him?" Victoria asked. "My dear wife, I really wanted to make sure of your well-being. I couldn't accept the idea that you were at risk of contracting a disease that could threaten your health or even your life. That was my priority. In addition, I sought to prevent transmission of the infection to myself, although it seems unnecessary given our prolonged absence of intimacy, which lasted so long that I can't even remember when it was the last time," I explained. "What happened to the idea that this open marriage would strengthen our relationship and make us closer? When will this transformation happen, Victoria?" I expressed my disappointment, and she understood it perfectly. "I hope you're happy now," Victoria replied and left, leaving a chill in the air that permeated our marriage. The next month passed in silence and minimal communication between us. Suddenly, everything changed when Victoria announced that she was dating a new man. She dressed up in a seductive blouse and skirt complemented by 4-inch high-heeled shoes. Her hair and makeup were impeccable, and there was a new fragrance on her that caught my attention and exuded a sweet smell. Calling me dear for the first time in a long time, she casually mentioned meeting a certain person with whom she communicated on the internet. Worried, I asked, "Where are you going, and who are you meeting?" I repeated that I was waiting for her to return home as soon as possible, stressing that this should happen in the evening of the same day and not early in the morning. After this conversation, the tension quickly increased. Nevertheless, in the midst of the chaos, I managed to find out details about the man, his name, occupation, and divorced status. This situation was especially difficult for me, considering that I was responsible for the upbringing of the children. Victoria's belief that a relationship with another man could revive passion and excitement in our marriage did not bring the expected results. On the contrary, it led to a series of dramatic events, as a result of which I began to feel increasingly annoyed with her. Although I used to be able to consider divorce as an acceptable option, now I hesitated because of concerns about how it would affect our children. Even if I had left, the children would have stayed with their mother, who did not stay with them at night. It was a difficult and trying period for me as I tried to figure out the reasons for her behavior and how I myself felt about it. I admit that, as you have rightly pointed out, I am not without guilt. I was too lenient with her actions, and as a result, I took on most of the parenting responsibilities when she was often away from home. The children noticed her absence and longed for her presence. They asked about her every day, wondering why she is not at home so often, and yet seeing her only once or twice a week. It was difficult for them to trust her declarations of love. Our eldest daughter even asked, "Dad, why does Mom spend so much time with her friend? Who is her friend?" It was a difficult situation that needed to be addressed. Victoria began to neglect the most important duties that she usually performed for the sake of the children. One afternoon, I got a call from the school and was informed that the parent-teacher meetings, which Victoria usually attended, had been held the day before without her participation. The deputy director expressed concern, noting Victoria's typical reliability, and suggested rescheduling the meeting if necessary. but attempts to contact Victoria by phone proved futile as her phone was turned off and forwarded calls to voicemail. I apologized to the school and assured them that I would arrange a new meeting. The next day, despite numerous attempts to contact Victoria, her phone was still not responding, directing all calls to voicemail. I left a frustrated message in which I expressed dissatisfaction with her absence from the meeting and urged her to call me back. Without giving it any importance, she did not respond for 3 days. I asked her to come home to chat, and she agreed to come on Friday afternoon. I arranged to take time off from work, intending to give her an ultimatum. But on Friday, she called and canceled the meeting, explaining that she had possible work responsibilities. It looks like she was delaying the conversation, perhaps influenced by her boyfriend. The next turning point that marked the border was our daughter's birthday. Parents usually celebrate their children's birthdays to express their affection and attention to them. Children are waiting for gifts, cake, ice cream, in the company of friends, and my children were no different from them. It is especially hard when a mother forgets about the child's birthday. A few weeks earlier, I had asked Victoria to organize a birthday party for our daughter, and she assured me that she would handle it masterfully. But as the date approached, no progress was observed on her part. Taking matters into my own hands, I sent out invitations, bought a gift for my daughter, chose a venue for the holiday, and ordered food. I was hoping Victoria would remember, but she didn't. My daughter was heartbroken due to the absence of her mother at the holiday. When other parents asked me about Victoria's absence, I made up work-related excuses. Seeing my daughter's deep disappointment, I called Victoria, and when she answered, I handed the phone to my daughter. "Mom, it's me." "Where are you?" my daughter asked. Victoria hesitated for a moment before answering, "What's going on, honey?" "Mom, today is my birthday." "Why aren't you here?" "We had a party, but you didn't come," my daughter expressed her opinion. After a minute's silence on the line, my daughter decided that my mother had disconnected the call and returned the phone to me. "Victoria, are you still there?" I asked when I heard the alarm sounds. "Victoria, what happened, for God's sake?" "You missed Emma's birthday," I exclaimed before the call abruptly ended. Later, a neighbor cautiously inquired about Victoria's well-being, noticing her absence and feeling the tension in our relationship. That evening was a turning point for me. Faced with Victoria's lack of interest in me and our children, I made a difficult choice in favor of divorce. We lived, in fact, separate lives, and it was obvious that we needed to break up. The next day, we met with Victoria. "Please have a seat," I said to her, while she looked at her watch. I assured her that our conversation wouldn't take long and asked her what was on her mind. In a conversation with her, I mentioned that since she left, the children have been constantly asking when she will return home. I asked if she was going to come home because it seemed to me that she had already moved away from us. She assured me that she would return, explaining that she needed time now to regain the passion and intimacy that we had lost. As soon as she satisfied this need, she promised to return home and become a better wife so that we could become a family again. I want to tell you that Emma was very upset when you didn't come to her birthday party. Our other 2 children are now wondering if you will come to their birthdays as well." Victoria's eyes widened in disbelief. "How could you forget about the days of our children?" "It's time to reveal the difficult truth for you too, Victoria. I have come to a decision." "I think it's time for us to get divorced," Victoria asked in shock. "Why are you asking for a divorce, William?" "I'll be back home soon," I answered firmly. "Victoria, marriage cannot be saved. You are not fulfilling your duties as a wife, and since you have already left home, then I cannot fulfill mine. To be honest, you shouldn't have left at all." I was silent for the sake of our children, but now the situation has reached a critical point. "You moved out and settled everything a few months ago, barely acknowledging that you had children and obligations to them, not to mention me. According to my lawyer, the court may regard this as a rejection of our marriage and children. But William, I love you and the kids. Can't you see that?" Victoria begged. I answer firmly, "No, Victoria, I don't see any love here. If you really loved your husband, you wouldn't have had an affair. If you cared about us, why did you leave? Why did you move in with your boyfriend? Your talk of reviving passion and intensity in our marriage is just a mockery." I won't even involve our children in this discussion because your actions already show that you don't care about them. This is a joke on me, but I'm not laughing anymore. We'll get divorced as soon as possible. Start packing your things to get back to him. You're not my wife anymore, and I'm not your husband anymore. I will start looking for a new partner who will become the wife and mother of our children. But William, we're married. I'm your wife. You are my husband. I love you. I don't want to get a divorce, Victoria begged. And I want to get a divorce. I have done research, and the courts of this jurisdiction recognize when someone leaves their marriage. You abandoned our marriage and our children, so it's time for you to leave home, go back to Henry where you want to be. I don't want to see you here anymore, I said firmly. Victoria seemed stunned by my words, gathered up her purse, and quietly left the house. I didn't tell Victoria that during the time she spent with her new boyfriend, I also started looking for a life partner. I met a woman named Charlotte who had 2 children and was abandoned by her husband for a younger woman. I went on a date with her, and my kids were thrilled about it. When I returned, my daughter came downstairs and asked, "How did the date go, Daddy?" "Honey, the date went really well. I had a great time. Charlotte is a wonderful person whom I admire very much," I shared. "Is she going to be our new mom?" the daughter asked, surprised by her question. I remarked, "Where did this come from? It seems like kids are more perceptive these days than I was at their age. It's not something you have to worry about, honey. Besides, it was just our first date. I do not know when the second one will be or if it will be at all. Dad, will Mom ever come back?" my daughter asked. It was a difficult question, to put it mildly. I replied, "I don't know, but one thing is for sure, I'm not going anywhere. I will always be there for you, your sister, and brother. You can count on it." "Thank you, Dad," she said, hugging me, after which we returned to her room where I put her to bed. I went to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and sat down at the counter, lost in thought. My wife, in fact, left the family to be with her lover. Meanwhile, I had a pleasant date with a charming woman who could potentially become my new partner. Tonight was the most enjoyable evening in the last year, with an incredible intimacy that I wanted to continue. I longed to find a life partner with whom I could share my life again, but my mind reminded me to act carefully. On Monday, I contacted a divorce lawyer to discuss the further development of the process. Having financial data on hand, I had a good idea of what the divorce from Victoria would result in. Most likely, I will have to spend my retirement savings to cover her share of the house and possibly pay a modest amount of alimony over several years. Despite the expense, it seemed like a necessary step. She showed no interest in returning, making it clear that she no longer prioritizes either her children or me. "You have been served," Victoria was stunned by this statement. She knew what was in the envelope. She slowly closed the door, took the envelope to the kitchen, and put it on the counter. She waited for more than an hour before opening it, reflecting on the past year and the decisions she had made. Were they correct? Did she understand the consequences of her affair? Is Henry worth sacrificing his life and children for? Despite the unprecedented intimacy she had experienced with him, was it really enough? Was her husband, William, such an inferior partner that she was forced to leave him and the children? These were difficult questions. With trepidation, she opened the envelope and took out the documents carefully, as if expecting an explosion. She read their contents. The divorce documents talked about the abandonment of children, infidelity, and proposed to divide the property of the spouses. I was given full custody of the children with visitation rights and alimony in the amount of thousands of dollars monthly for 2 years. She threw the papers on the counter, finally realizing the seriousness of her action. The lies and deception she had been weaving for me for the past 2 years were now haunting her. Again, she could no longer deceive herself into believing that she had succeeded, that she could act without consequences, or that she could have a relationship with other men without consequences on my part. Victoria dialed my mobile phone number, but the call immediately went to voicemail. She left a laconic message in which she urged me to call her back about the important documents she received. She then tried to call her former home, but there was no response. Realizing the urgency of the situation and the need to restore the marriage, she quickly grabbed her car keys and purse and hit the road. When she arrived home, she found that her key no longer fit any of the locks, and the garage code had been changed. In a state of panic, Victoria went to my office, deciding to sort out the situation. My assistant, who knew about Victoria's affair, informed me that I was not in place. Unable to contact me at the office, she decided to return to her former home, planning to wait for me and the children to return from school. The children arrived at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon with their teacher. They greeted Victoria coolly, and her son barely acknowledged her presence by asking directly, "What are you doing here?" Victoria settled down in the dining room while the children had a snack and did their homework, noticing the changes in the decor since her previous visit. Victoria saw new items on the walls, other curtains, and several pieces of fresh furniture. I returned home in the evening. Victoria hurried over to me as I entered through the back door. "William dear, I'm back and glad you're here. We need to talk about some of the documents that were delivered to me today," she said. "That's great, Victoria. Did you sign them and take them with you?" I asked. "I signed them before my lawyer sent them to you," she confirmed. "I believe that what I am proposing is fair and consistent with family and divorce laws in our state. The kids will stay with me, and it's not up for discussion, but you can have the right to visit if you want, provided that the children are happy to see you. Dear, I plan to return home tonight. I realize that I need you and the kids back in my life. I was wrong when I thought I needed someone else. You and the kids are all I need. I see it clearly now. I'm coming back, and I promise to be a good wife and mother." Corrected passage. Wait, Victoria. When you made the decision to leave us for Henry, it was your choice. I remember trying to talk you out of it, but you were firm in your decision. You've made your bed, and now you have to lie in it. That's why you're not invited back. Henry has taken your place now. You don't belong here anymore. It's been a year since you left." Victoria was crying quietly, and I offered her some napkins to wipe away her tears. I waited a few minutes for her to come to her senses. "I think it's time for you to leave," I said. "Can I see the kids?" Victoria asked. "Of course. I'll go get them," I replied. I went upstairs to get the children, telling them that their mother was downstairs and wanted to see them. At first, they hesitated, but after a little persuasion and assurances that they were not obliged to communicate with her if they did not want to, they eventually followed me into the kitchen. It had been months since they had last seen their mother. Victoria greeted them with a smile and said, "Hi, kids. I could use a hug from you." They stood motionless, not making a single move towards their mother. The eldest, Emma, asked, "Why did you leave us, Mom?" Victoria started crying again. "I'm coming home, kids. I've missed you so much. I love you all so much," she said. The daughter quickly responded, "If you love us so much, why did you leave us and stay away for so long?" Victoria was stunned by this question, realizing that the answer to it was not the one she wanted to admit. She wanted a relationship without consequences with other men besides her husband. Victoria didn't give a damn about her family and how her actions would affect her children. She didn't pay attention to her family, thinking only of herself. It was only now that she began to understand what she had sacrificed. I intervened, addressing the children. "Why don't you go back upstairs for now? Mom and I need to talk in private." With disapproving expressions on their faces, the children left the kitchen, led by their mother. After a short pause, I touched on this topic. "So, do you still think that leaving us for Henry was the right decision? Did you honestly believe that you could just leave and come back as if nothing had changed?" While I was waiting for her answer, the atmosphere didn't change, but all I heard was her sniffing and blowing her nose. "In case you haven't noticed, I've made progress. It probably dawned on you when you received the divorce papers today. You rushed here as soon as you realized that the family had reached the limit with your behavior." Nevertheless, the silence and sniffling continued. "Pack up all the things you haven't picked up yet," I continued. I packed everything I could find into boxes in the garage. "It will be relatively easy for you to handle this. You can ask Henry for help," I said. "If you need anything else, just let me know. You can take anything you want, except me and the kids," I said after waiting another minute for Victoria's reply, which never came. "I think it's time for you to leave. There is no need for discussion anymore. I'm not interested in reconciling with you. The kids aren't happy about your return either. It's better if you go back to Henry. If you want, have your lawyer examine the divorce papers, and we can discuss the details through legal channels," I added, getting up and heading for the front door. I opened the door and motioned for her to leave. "Goodbye, Victoria," I said. She sat with a drooping look for a minute, then got up, took her bag, and went out the front door. I closed the door behind her and took a deep breath. 3 months later, my lawyer set up a last meeting for us to sign the divorce papers. We discussed and negotiated the conditions for visiting the children, deciding that they should not be obliged to see their mother if they didn't want to. At first, their visits would be supervised by their grandparents. If everything went smoothly, then in the future, unsupervised visits would be possible. In the end, the children decided for themselves whether they wanted to see their mother. To everyone's surprise, they visited her several times, but after meeting Henry, they felt uneasy and decided not to continue. It turned out that they had a keen sense of prudence. Meanwhile, my relationship with Charlotte was developing. We spent more time together, meeting 2 or 3 times a week. I offered to participate in activities that went beyond simple physical intimacy. I offered to organize walks with our children since her daughters were close in age to my younger children. I was glad to see them. Our first trip to the zoo followed by pizza was a success. The children got along easily. This walk marked a shift in my relationship with Charlotte, a transition from casual meetings to more serious ones. But a year has passed since then, and various changes have taken place in my life. Another year has passed, and I have gained wisdom and experience. Now I live with Charlotte, or rather, we live together in the same house. Managing 5 children is certainly not easy, no matter what others say. Fortunately, we all fit easily in my house, and 2 girls live in the same room. We have created strong family ties. Shortly after our families joined, Charlotte and I exchanged vows. Our wedding took place in a circle of close relatives and friends under the supervision of a judge friend on the beach in the Dominican Republic. It was an unforgettable event. Our priority is to have weekly dates to pay attention to each other and strengthen our relationship. In addition to creating satisfying intimate relationships, we attach great importance to communication. We both realized how important it is to maintain open communication, regardless of the topic. One day at dinner, the children expressed a desire to go camping. In an effort to fulfill their wish, we bought camping equipment and went in search of adventures in one of the state parks. The experience turned out to be fantastic, and the children had a lot of fun. The highlight of the trip was sitting around the campfire and frying marshmallows. There were several cases when a marshmallow caught fire, causing a fireball to fly directly at my head. They quickly dodged to avoid being hit by the sticky fiery mass. 4 girls and 1 boy can cause a lot of laughter by having fun with a burning marshmallow. I decided to officially adopt Charlotte's 2 girls so that everyone in our family would have the same last name, GS, which made our lives easier. About a month ago, during one of our usual date nights, Charlotte surprised me once again. She is an incredible woman who brings me joy every day. That evening when we ordered dinner, I noticed that instead of the usual glass of wine, she chose water. It didn't really matter in itself, but when she took a small white plastic wand out of her purse, I immediately understood what was going on. She smiled as she handed it to me. "You should take a look at this, dear." To my surprise, she was pregnant. My wife, whom I had been married to for less than a year and with whom I already had 5 children, was expecting another child. We were busy preparing for the addition to our family. The most amazing news came to us when we found out that Charlotte was pregnant with twins. This news meant that we would soon have 7 children. Fortunately, I recently got a promotion at work and now head the legal department of the company. Thanks to my salary increase and bonuses, we are confident that we will be able to cope with the financial obligations of a large family and even set aside funds for their education. To offer our growing family a summer vacation, we purchased a cottage on the shore of the lake, about a 2-hour drive from our place of residence. We have started to renovate and expand our house to accommodate our energetic, growing family. Reflecting on the past, I realize how lucky I am. Just 2 years after a failed marriage, I started life with a clean slate. What at first seemed like a difficult time for me and my children after Victoria left for another turned into a positive result when I crossed paths with a wonderful woman, Charlotte, who accepted me and my children. Every morning, amid the controlled chaos of a bustling household, I thank fate that I was lucky enough to meet Charlotte and her daughters. With the arrival of 2 more children, our family became complete. Our children maintained harmonious relationships, and we were a happy and contented family. Besides, my wife was extremely beautiful. Victoria's life took a different path after our divorce. Her relationship with Henry was short-lived. It seems that Henry had a habit of stalking married women, and in the end, he left Victoria for another woman, whom he stole from her husband. Victoria quit her job because, after Henry traded her for Victoria's colleague, she started drinking too much alcohol. Maybe she was really in love with him. It was rumored that she often changed sexual partners and had a sexually transmitted disease. One day, when Charlotte and I were walking with the children, I thought I caught a glimpse of Victoria in a wheelchair in the city center. She was begging with a hat in her hand. We walked as a family, with the older children holding the younger ones by the hand. We didn't stop to start a conversation with her. I felt her gaze, and when we passed by, the eldest daughter asked me for change and threw them into her hat without even greeting the woman. Perhaps Victoria was thinking that things could have turned out differently, or maybe she felt a sense of relief that she was no longer responsible for her children and her husband. It's hard to say for sure, but I saw the tears that rolled down from her eyes.